Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhudaktu. Om Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, 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 and thy blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beings everywhere. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace. I can't talk now, I'm in class. So, Jeff cannot be with us today as our reader, so I've asked Balakrishna ji to read for us, and we'll start on with Sutra 44.
Okay, should I start, Shankaraji?
Yes, please do.
Okay, 44. By making samyama on the thought waves of the mind, when it is separated from the body, the state known as the great disincarnation, all coverings can be removed from the light of knowledge.
Okay, please read on.
Like Aphorism 39, this refers to the yoga power of withdrawing the mind from one's own body in order to make it pass into the body of another. In this state of withdrawal, the great disincarnation, the mental coverings composed of rajas and tamas dwindle away, and the light of sattva is revealed. That is the end of 44.
Okay, I think we all remember the story about Adi Shankaracharya doing this. So there's no need to repeat it. I don't see anybody here who hasn't heard that story. So please read on to 45 and so on, dear.
45. By making samyama on the gross and subtle forms of the elements, on their essential characteristics and the inherence of the gunas in them, and on the experiences they provide for the individual, one gains mastery of the elements. And there is 46. Yeah. 46. Hence, one gains the power of becoming as tiny as an atom, and all similar powers. Also, perfection of the body, which is no longer subject to the obstruction of the elements. Not only can the yogi become as tiny as an atom, but as huge as a mountain, as heavy as lead, or as light as air. And the elements cease to obstruct him. He can pass through rock. He can hold his hand in the fire unburned. He can walk through water unwetted. He can stand firm against hurricane. That is the end of the 45 and 46.
Okay. Is there any comment or concern or question about anything that's been said? These, of course, now are describing psychic, not spiritual powers. They are the occult powers. The occult siddhis that result from the ability to make concentration and meditation, do concentration and meditation, make samyama on some particular aspect of time, space, and causation. And it yields these results. The Ramakrishna order monks and Sri Ramakrishna himself strongly discourage this activity. As a matter of fact, Patanjali himself discourages this activity, saying it is nothing more than a distraction, a detour, and it can lead you to be trapped for many lifetimes in this detour. So Sri Ramakrishna says, you don't need any of this. You don't want any of this. This is simply a way of satisfying subtler and subtler aspects of desire, and it's a manifestation of ego. So any other comments, concerns, or questions from anyone about what's been read or what's been said? All right, dear, please read on.
47, 48, and 49 altogether.
Mm-hmm.
7. Perfection of the body includes beauty, grace, strength, and the hardness of thunderbolt, and the hardness of a thunderbolt. 48. By making samyama on the transformation that the sense organs undergo when they contact objects on the power of illumination of the sense organs, on the ego sense, on the gunas which constitute the organs, and on the experiences they provide for the individual, one gains mastery of the organs. Please
Read that again a little more slowly, dear.
Okay.
There's a lot there.
Yes. By making samyama on the transformation that the sense organs undergo when they contact objects, on the power of illumination of the sense organs, on the ego sense, on the gunas which constitute the organs, and on the experiences they provide for the individual, one gains mastery of the organs.
Okay, you just said that there's another.
Yeah, 114. Hence, the body gains the power of movement as rapid as that of the mind. The power of using the sense organs outside the confines of the body, and the mastery of Prakriti.
So in other words, you become omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. But remember, all of these old words are not spiritual words. They describe spiritual beings, the divine beings, their powers within time, space, and causation. But they are not spiritual powers. They are powers within time, space, and causation. So there's simply no reason to go there if what you're seeking is knowledge of the divine, knowledge of the Atman, knowledge of God. There's simply no reason whatsoever to expend your effort to make samyama on these things. Is there any commentary that you'd like to read, Balakrishna?
Yes, the commentary is, yes. Aphorism 48 describes a progressive samyama and all the separate phases of an act of cognition. The power of using the sense organs outside the confines of the body, mentioned in Aphorism 49, enables one to exercise clairvoyance and clairaudience. Mastery of Prakriti, the primal cause, gives the yogi control of all effects evolved from Prakriti. In other words, control of nature.
Omnipotence.
Yes.
So any comments, concerns, or questions from anyone about anything about what's been said by Patanjali, commented on by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood, or anything said from here? All right, I think it's good that we're not tarrying over these things, because they really don't deserve our interest. They're not worthy of our attention. They are just mentioned by Patanjali because, as Swami Vivekananda points out, he is a scientist. He cannot ignore this aspect of time, space, and causation, of this lower or small r reality. So he is describing it. And in doing so, he is being thorough, detailed, and scientific, but he's certainly not recommending these things. If there's nothing else from anyone?
Well, they would say in 8th century, when Shankara was there, he went through all over India so many times, to all parts of India. And especially when he was going to the banks of Narmada, they say he used this way to go and meet his guru.
Well, yes. What Adi Shankaracharya did in the 8th century, and given that he was an avatar, he was an incarnation of the divine, certainly does not apply to us.
Yes.
Sri Ramakrishna manifested the ability to do some of these things as well. And Jesus certainly did. But they didn't do it willfully. They were not satisfying some desire. It was always done in the spirit of a benefit for humanity. Even Adi Shankaracharya's debates, they weren't so that he could win. He wasn't competing in that sense. He simply felt compelled by his inner being, his avatar self, to defeat all of the competing ways of interpreting the Vedas that many people had come forward with in his time. There was much confusion, there was just a forest of different teachers teaching far more than the 6 darshanas. So they were Adi Shankaracharya felt obligated to defeat them and bring order, which he did indeed. Of course, it didn't last either. It never does. He did it, Jesus did it, Rama did it, this, that, and the other. It always disintegrates again, which is why the avatars have to come back. Krishna is very explicit about that in the Gita. It's going to disintegrate. Virtue will decline, vice will prevail, and so he'll need to create from his Maya a body. and come among us to restore order. And he describes the order in several ways, but we don't need to go into that. We're studying Patanjali right now. So anything else from anyone about any of what we've read or said so far? Okay, please, Balakrishna, read on.
Number 50. By making samyama on the discrimination between the sattva guna and the Atman, one gains omnipotence and omniscience. This discrimination has already been discussed, aphorism 36 of this chapter. Number 51. By giving up even these powers, the seed of evil is destroyed and liberation follows. The seed of evil is ignorance. Because of ignorance, man forgets that he is the Atman and creates for himself the illusion of a private, separate ego personality. This ego personality is intent upon satisfying its desires and acquiring possessions and powers over external nature. Of all powers, the psychic powers are, from the standpoint of the ego, the most desirable. And of the psychic powers, omnipotence and omniscience, to which Patanjali has referred in the previous aphorism, are obviously the greatest. The yogi who has held even these powers within his grasp and nevertheless renounced them has rejected the ultimate temptation of the ego. Henceforth, he is freed from bondage. For example, Christ rejected the psychic powers offered to him by Satan in the wilderness. That is the end of the aphorism 51.
Yes. So, what is the goal? The goal is liberation. And within Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, liberation is defined as freedom from having any mental modifications whatsoever. No vritti, mental modifications, in the citta, the mind stuff. Obviously, satisfaction, the generation of desires and satisfaction of them, however it's done by physical powers or psychic powers or mental powers. This is mental modification. So as was just pointed out by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood, if the yogi can release even these, then there will be no mental modifications. There will be no vrittis in that yogi's mind stuff. There will be nothing to obstruct, nothing to distract from liberation. And so he or she becomes free. Is that clear to everyone, what that sequence is?
I have a question about that.
Yes, Janaki.
Do we have to go through the sequence, or do some
No.
not do it at all?
No. Once you've taken instruction from a guru, you do not need to go through these things at all. You do not need to have these temptations, because you will have access to the spiritual treasure box of the avatar that is at the heart of your spiritual instruction, For most of us, that would be Sri Ramakrishna. And so Sri Ramakrishna, as was pointed out by Sri Ramakrishna himself and Holy Mother and Brahmananda, we have done all that for you. So all you have to do is follow the instructions you were given, and none of this will be an issue. Now, Swami Prabhavananda said that when you practice for years, chanting your mantra, and fall into a very deep state of meditation. In other words, your mantra is the only thought that is in your mind, that one great thought of the mantra and what is behind it. You may manifest one of these powers. And he said clairaudience or clairvoyance were those would be the most likely that you would manifest. Simply because your mind had become so absorbed. You were in a state of samyama. Though you didn't will it, there it comes. He said, do allow yourself to experience it once. Whether it's clairaudience, the ability to hear things at a distance, or clairvoyance, the ability to see things at a distance, experience it once. Then renounce it as unnecessary to you. But the reason for experiencing it once is that he said, this is the Swami speaking now, he said that if you didn't, you would forever remain curious. What would it be like? What would it have been like to do that? Your mind, that's the nature of the mind. So he said, just go ahead and do it once and then renounce it. But so that's the only way you might, in some sense, experience that, Janaki. Having taken instruction from Swami Sarvadevananda, it is the instruction, and Sarvadevananda is the eternal teacher. What he is giving you is passed down from Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, and for that matter, Vivekananda. And so there it is. Thanks for asking the question. Anything else from anyone? All right.
Okay. Aphorism 52. When tempted by the invisible beings in high places, let the yogi feel neither allured nor flattered, but he is in danger of being caught once more by ignorance.
Now, who have we read of that had this experience? Well, the Swami already mentioned Christ, but if you read the story of Siddhartha, Gautama Buddha, that was the very last thing that at the end of his, he vowed, I've had it. I've had it with all of this seeking. I'm just going to sit down under this tree, withdraw into myself, and either I will die here or I will achieve the state of awakeness. Of course, that vow was an immediate challenge to these beings that are mentioned in this aphorism. They tempted him. It is also Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad, the last of his temptations, by Yama, the god of death, the last of his temptations. Yama says, I'll give you everything. kingdom, powers to enjoy that you can't even imagine, uh, dancing girls for your pleasure. He mentions, he goes through this list of things that he's offering Nachiketa. And Nachiketa says, no, please just answer the question that I posed to you. I don't want any of that. And of course, Yama is very pleased by this response and responds in full to the question that Nachiketa has asked him, which is about the nature of death itself. But the avatars experience these temptations. There's also, if you read in Sri Ramakrishna, his Divine Play, or The Great Master, the two translations of Swami Saradananda's book about Sri Ramakrishna, called the first translation was called The Great Master. You'll see that Sri Ramakrishna also was so tempted, and very deliberately tempted, both in subtle and in gross form. Prostitutes, extremely skilled, extremely beautiful prostitutes, were brought to his room at Dakshineshwar. I mean, these women knew their craft and trade, and they tried to lure him. And he simply began to weep and say, "Oh, Mother, why are you doing this to me?" He saluted them as the Divine Mother. "Oh, Mother, why are you doing this to me? Why, why?" And of course, then this completely disarmed them. And but that's just one example in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. There are others, particularly during his pursuit of the tantric disciplines, which deliberately present these things to you, these temptations. Anything else from anyone?
Really, the world presents all those temptations to us all the time already anyway. It may not be 100% as readily available as like the offers made, but it's there.
Oh yeah, if you have the money, there's nothing you can't buy.
And two, it's like what Gandhi said, my life is my message. So it's, when you live your life with that purity, with all that temptation, it is your message.
Well, yes. Now let's not go off on Gandhi, folks. Those of you who know the other side of Gandhi's story, please let's not go there again today.
I wasn't trying to make it about Gandhi, but I'm just saying.
No, I understand. But there is, particularly among the Bengalis, there is real reason to have other opinions about Gandhi. And so, but I just don't want us to go that direction.
Well, I was just saying that your actions in the world are your message.
Well, that's exactly it.
You can't.
That's what Swami Swahananda said when he asked one of his monks to start speaking on Sunday mornings, take the podium. The fellow said, Nitya Chaitanya was his name. Nitya said, "Well, Swami, what do I know that I should stand up there and instruct people?" And he said, Swami Swahananda said, "It really doesn't matter so much what you say. Your life will speak for you." And if you knew of Nitya Chaitanya, you see why the Swami would have said that of him. His life indeed did speak for him. He was the embodiment of purity, sattva, and the maintaining the vows of a monk. He was a remarkable, remarkable man. So, yes, exactly. Your life speaks for you. Anything else? Thank you, Bhagavan Das. All right, please read on, dear.
The invisible beings in high places are the fallen yogis already referred to, chapter 1, aphorism 19, who have reached the state of disincarnate gods or become merged in the forces of nature. Such beings have failed to find liberation precisely because they yielded to the temptations of the psychic powers. Therefore, it is said they are jealous of those who seem about to overcome these temptations, and they try to drag them back into ignorance. In the commentary on Patanjali's Aphorisms, which is attributed to Vyasa, the allurements offered to the yogi by those in high places are described pointedly but forcefully as follows. Sir, will you seat yourself here? Will you rest here? You might enjoy these pleasures. You might find this maiden attractive. This elixir will banish old age and death. In this chariot, you can fly through the air. Over there are trees which grant all wishes. That heavenly stream will give you happiness. Those sages know everything. These nymphs are fearlessly beautiful, and you will not find them cold. Your eyes and ears will become supernaturally keen. Your body will shine like a diamond. In consequence of your distinguished virtues, honored sir, you are entitled to all these rewards. Please enter into this heaven, which is unfailing, ageless, deathless, and dear to the gods. Thus tempted, the yogi is advised to reply as follows. This is the Nachiketa's answer. I have been baked on the dreadful coals of reincarnation. I have withered in the darkness of rebirth and death. Now, at last, I have found the lamp of yoga, which dispels the shadows of ignorance. How then can I, who have seen its light, be led astray once more by sensual things? The great Hindu teachers all believe that a yogi's spiritual development might be interfered with by external forces, by the disincarnate gods, by beings on the psychic or subtle plane of matter, or by earthbound spirits. And this belief is symbolized in the traditional Hindu ritualistic worship, which begins as follows. First, the worshipper must try to feel the presence of God everywhere as the all-pervading existence. Then he must feel that the doors of his senses are locked and that he has entered into the shrine of his own heart where God dwells. He must say, as a man with eyes wide open sees the sky before him, so the seers see always the supreme truth of God. Trying to imagine that he has already gained this power of spiritual sight, he now opens his eyes, repeating his mantram. As he does so, he must look about him, trying to see the presence of God in everything. trying to imagine that he has already gained this power of spiritual sight, he now opens his eyes, repeating his mantram as he does so. He must look about him, trying to see the presence of God in everything he sees, and to know that by the power of the mantram, the obstacles created by the disincarnate gods are being removed.
And any of you who have experienced Aditya Chaturvedi or any other skilled pujari, but particularly Aditya, who explains what he's doing as he goes along, you'll see that this is very much a part of what the pujari does. And there is the apparent danger. This is what we're told: the apparent danger of these these jealous, envious, disincarnate gods trying to take the virtue of the puja and obstruct the worship of the divine being in its widest and greatest sense. So but again, this is not something that any of us needs to do. We do not need to become pujaris. We do not need to learn how to do these things. All we need to do is follow the instructions of our teacher. And this is, Sri Ramakrishna says, I've created in this declining time of the Kali Yuga, I, speaking as the avatar, the incarnation of God, he says, and I'm going to now paraphrase, I have created a shortcut. You can go directly to the knowledge of God and just follow these as simple instructions. And if you do that with patience, perseverance, and the expectation that it will happen, it will happen. This is his promise. Sri Krishna said makes the same promise in the Gita. It's a little more elaborate, what he says. Sri Ramakrishna was known for being very simple, like a child. He spoke like a child. And so he just said, I can do this, I'll do it for you.
I'm in a class. I'm going to call you in about half an hour. Okay? Actually, please
Yes, Janaki.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Just, and this question means no disrespect, but why do we do Patanjali then?
There's no reason to study Patanjali. We study Patanjali because Swami Prabhavananda provided us this translation. You don't need to take this class. You don't need to do
Well,
this.
no, but I want it to be with the rest of the group.
Yes, well,
Good
it
reasons.
is a very good thing to do. That is auspicious for us to gather together and listen to these things. And it does clear up some confusion in our minds. I mean, this is a workbook. Patanjali, this is Raja Yoga. This is the path of Raja Yoga. And, Patanjali's workbook, which Swami Prabhavananda published as very clearly a workbook, How to Know God. This is a way. Sri Ramakrishna, of course, recommended to those who follow his path, he says, well, you need to have some of the practices and principles of Raja Yoga. You need to be able to practice concentration and meditation, but follow the bhakta's path. Follow the bhakta's path. And that is the most auspicious path for this declining time of the Kali Yuga. But we study Patanjali because it clarifies some things about the practice of contemplation, concentration, and meditation. And we're just about finished. I mean, the chapter 4 is really quite short. And as I said, the reason we're reading and discussing these powers is because in the spirit of scientific completeness, Patanjali presents them to us. And certainly there are some interesting things said here about things that could happen to you. And if you didn't know what they were,
Right.
and didn't have some guidance, then you might be at a bit of a loss.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother, why is it that some practices sort of make you vulnerable? Like I think you were hinting at like the path, the straightforward path, which the gurus tell us, especially in the Ramakrishna order, doesn't have this kind of risk. But there are certain practices that it's really hard to start them because I myself, like, there's obstruction. It's almost like all hell breaking loose, and there's a lot of risk there. So why is it like some practices are like that and the other practices do not have that kind of risk?
Because the universe contains everything. I mean, there's just nothing that Mother has not created. It's all there. The most beneficent to the most destructive, and everything in between. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all there. And when you say all hell breaks loose, if you touch on that, just run the other direction. It's just like this Tai Chi instructor, who was also a martial arts instructor, that was studied with in Glendale many years back now. He said, if someone suddenly gets in your face and wants to fight, turn and run as fast as you can in the other direction. This from a man who could have defeated anyone but someone who was his equal in physical combat. He said, don't do it. Don't do it. Run. He said, I would. So just run. Run from hell. You don't need to be there. You don't need to go there. You don't need to experience it. And certainly, if one clings to the feet of the great ones, if one takes refuge with them, which is what clinging to the feet means, if one takes refuge with the great ones, Saranagata I am refuged by thee. Just don't yield to any temptation to, and ultimately, you just want to live as simply as you can, satisfying as few desires as you must. I mean, we need food, we need drink, we need sleep, we need clothing, we need shelter. Satisfy these needs. Anything you do that goes beyond that, well, that is or is not an issue for you. I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying the one who is following the spiritual path most ardently is likely to simplify their lives as greatly as possible. Simply because it disentangles you from so much. How are we doing for time? Oh, we've got another
We
15
have 15
minutes.
minutes.
Brother Shankara, I have one comment about this, these sutras. It gave us the discriminative power. Now we can figure out which is real, which is unreal during our journey for liberation.
This is one form of discrimination, yes.
Yes,
Patanjali is one form of discrimination.
exactly. That's what I see it now. What is real, what is unreal. It really gives us some power to realize while we're doing these practices.
Thank you, dear. Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
But Patanjali's path is each of the paths has its own, the four yogas as left to us by Vivekananda. Each of them has their own way of saying reality, unreality.
Yes.
Everything from the bhakta's acceptance of everything to the Jnani's rejection of everything.
Thank you.
Patanjali is a middle way, so to speak. Anything else? Thank you, Harmo.
Actually, personally, when I practice meditation and I follow a certain path of Kriya Yoga meditation, what I find so good about Patanjali is that it is a very precise manual. And I know, brother, you talk about it as a workbook. It's an extremely precise manual. And if you really follow it and cross-reference all these sutras, it will give you a fantastic and logical explanation of what needs to be done. And for folks that, and I find certain days I have a lot of devotions, certain other days I cannot generate that one, but I can certainly go ahead and follow a methodology that will give me at least one step at a time. I'm moving in a direction, and maybe I'll move faster if I can invoke bhakti and jnana and karma as part of it, but at least at a minimum, I have a daily manual to follow. So.
Amen. As usual, Bhaskar, so well articulated. That's exactly what this is. It is a very precise, as you said, manual for keeping us oriented to what deserves our attention. And as you say, some days you feel some devotion and other days not. That's true of every human being as long as you're embodied, even the avatars, even Sri Ramakrishna spoke of this, and Holy Mother. The underlying truth was always self-evident to them, but its expression within the human frame, not always there. So well said, Bhaskar. Yes, this keeps us oriented. It is a compass. It points to true north. And if we just keep, as you say, step by step by step by step, and that's how we live, isn't it? Step by step, hour by hour, day by day. As is so eloquently said by those who follow the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. It is moment by moment. I am sober in this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. Thank you as always. Anything else, or shall Balakrishna read on? Okay, Balaji, read on, please.
Brother, I have one thing to say.
Yes, Rajiv.
So, there's this thing about sakam and nishkam. Like sakam means like with desire, and nishkam is without desire. I think, initially I used to convince myself like it was like a forced thing, right? Like do nishkam. But I think there's a very logical realization that sometimes I feel like as per the aim, maybe I, or maybe in general, a lot of people, or maybe just I, if I talk about myself, we are so inadequate that it is like, even with the most selfish perspective, I think the best thing is to just ask for, ask the Ishta Devata to just basically, a state of surrender, and what you think is most auspicious for me, because there's no way I can figure it out. And it's, although it seems to be like unselfish, but it is actually a very logical and a sort of a selfish thing to ask.
Well,
So I think,
yes, of course, you're asking for your higher self. And the only word I would take issue with in what you said is inadequate. You are not in any way inadequate. You may not be manifesting everything at any given moment. But as Swami Vivekananda said, never say words that minimize yourself. You are adequate. It's a question only of manifesting that adequacy at any given time. And the Christians have this, I am weak, but thou art strong. Well, no, all the strength that is within the soul. So we may be manifesting a certain inability at any given time, but we are not weak. We are not inadequate. And when we feel that way, remind ourselves of what all of the great teachers tell us, Tattvamasi. In one way or another, they all say this, that thou art. You are the Atman, not the mind, body, antakarana, all that business. That's the instrument you're using to live moment to moment. And sometimes it functions optimally, many times not. But there's no inadequacy. So it's good that you can remind yourself that the depth and the strength is there. But it's best not to minimize ourselves. Vivekananda was very emphatic about that. Words matter. There's a whole school of psychology called neurolinguistics that deals with this in great detail. How much what we say is and whenever one would start out down this road with Swami Swahananda, he would just interrupt you and he would say, what is done. Go forward. If you weren't enough in those moments, all right, what's done is done. And he was so strong about it. What's done is done. And then he would make this gesture, go forward, go forward. You go forward based on practices and principles that will carry you forward. Thank you, Rajiv. Like I say, that was the only word that I took issue with. The rest of what you said, I liked very much. Do we have time for anything more?
Yeah.
Okay, please read on then.
Now we must throw a spoonful of water straight up into the air, as if into the psychic realm, invoking the protective power of God to remove all psychic obstacles. Finally, he must take some rice between his right thumb and forefinger and scatter it in a circle, saying, may the earthbound spirits, the spirits that create obstacles, be dissolved by the will of the Lord Shiva. The earthbound spirits are said to be the spirits of those who have committed suicide. They are earthbound because they still have to work out the karma which they have tried to reject by their acts. The worshipper is praying that they may be released from their present form and thus set free to develop towards liberation. Sometimes a food offering is given to the earthbound spirits to propitiate them, and they are told either to leave the place or to remain and watch the worship without interfering from a respectful distance. It is only after performing these preliminary ceremonies that the worshipper can proceed to the direct ritualistic worship of his chosen deity. Up to a certain point, temptation increases with spiritual growth. As the aspirant ceases to be mere beginner and gains some mystical experience, his personality becomes magnetic. He finds that he can exert psychological power over others and also sexual attraction. At the same time, his own senses grow keener and more capable of enjoyment. It is therefore easy for him to become involved in power and sexual relationships, which will make him forget his original purpose. The very people who are drawn to him because of the godlike quality they see in his nature may be the ones who are most responsible for his gradual alienation from God. But as Sri Krishna tells us, no one who seeks Brahman ever comes to an evil end. And so, even when such a lapse takes place, we may believe that the spiritual aspirant will eventually find his way back to the path, and that those who tempted him from it will also, to some extent, have gained spiritual benefit from their association with him. That's the end of the aphorism 52.
Quite a mouthful, that.
Yes.
It explains such people as Elvis Presley, the Beatles in their early days, Frank Sinatra. I mean, there were crowds and crowds of screaming women. I mean, it was just beyond all imagination what they would generate by their mere presence. Presley would begin to sing just a few notes, and the screaming would start to where you couldn't hear him sing. Same thing happened with the Beatles. Frank Sinatra. There, of course, have been others down through the centuries. So this is what's being described here. Those of us who cling to the feet of a holy one, a true holy one, will not experience this kind of temptation, won't manifest this kind of thing. For example, somebody took a picture of Swami Yogatmananda, and it was just sent to me yesterday. That picture, he is smiling, he is so radiant, he is just totally radiant. With that radiance, if anyone approaches him because they're drawn to him in an inappropriate or inauspicious way. You know that his vows will protect him. And so, I mean, it isn't as if it's just entertainers that manifest this great radiance. So we're about to be in the presence, those of us who wish to be, July 8th and 9th, we're about to be in the presence of someone else who draws large crowds. Many of those people who come to hear what he has to say, they really don't understand what he's saying. They don't know enough to have context for understanding what he's saying. That's not why they're there. I mean, they may get, as was just said, they may get spiritual benefit, both from the words and just the samskaras that are left. Ultimately, they will bear fruit, as Sri Krishna points out in the Gita very, very explicitly. Those samskaras will ultimately bear fruit. They will come to understand at some point, and they won't even know why. They'll understand things, something will come to them, and it'll seem like they're understanding it intuitively. No, not at all. But they're there because of this magnetic power of his personality. July 8th and 9th, at the Doubletree Inn here in Tucker, the Swami will give a 2-day spiritual retreat on the Ashtavakra Samhita. This utterance, this song of Ashtavakra that the Swami says is his favorite scripture, favorite of this kind of utterance by a great sage. So it should be quite remarkable to listen to him talk about this for 2 days. It's a free event, no pre-registration. You just need to show up at 8 a.m. on July the 8th and register for the event at the Doubletree Inn here in Tucker. If you want to come from a distance, the rooms are set aside for you at a discount rate at the hotel. If you don't have elsewhere to stay in the area, you can stay in the hotel. As I said, it's a free event. 10 a.m. The discourses will go on from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. It's a very well thought out schedule by the Swami about when he'll talk, and you'll have opportunities to ask questions and so on. Any comments or questions about that? By the way, there will be, we're just about finished with a flyer that, as a matter of fact, the draft is probably in my email box now of the flyer, and it'll be on our website. It'll be attached to our newsletter. If you're not a subscriber to the newsletter, please do subscribe, and you'll receive all this information in detail, complete detail. But right now, is there any question that I can answer about that event?
Is that Swami Sarvapriyananda or?
Sarvapriyananda, yes.
Okay.
I'll just say he's really had some really good talks of late that it's like he's gone to another level or something, it seems, lately.
Well, of course he will continue to inflate, so to speak. He will continue to become more and more of what it is. He is the eternal teacher, as the face presented to us by Swami Sarvapriyananda. All of these great Ramakrishna order Swamis, particularly those who are chosen to be head of center, they are a full-on face of the eternal teacher. So that's going to, as you say, Bhagavan Das, that's going to manifest more and more. And it doesn't surprise me that, but I just find it very gratifying that that is your experience of him. Wonderful. Anything else from anyone about any of that? All right, as I said, just keep an eye out for the newsletter, and you will find what you need in every detail. Anything else from anyone? All right, it's 7 minutes after the hour. Om Hari Om. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Oh, dearly beloved, make it so. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be cheerful. May we all have peace of mind. And may we all go forward in the secure knowledge that we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our mother and father. So until tomorrow morning, for those of you who choose to join us, when the topic will be on Bhakti Yoga. June will be a month for the study of Bhakti Yoga. And the topic of tomorrow morning's talk is, what does a Bhakta study? So that's tomorrow morning. 11 a.m., both in the chapel and on Zoom. For those of you who choose to join us, look forward to seeing you then. It was a delight to be with you now. And I'm going to sign off now. Until the next time. Jai Shri Ramakrishna Jai Ma. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai.